Let's talk some chess. This is a game that was played in 1949 in Leningrad in the Soviet Junior Qualifier. Boris Spassky, who we all know and are familiar with, was playing with white pieces. He's playing against someone named Avtonomov, and Spassky opens up with d4. Black responds with d5, and Spassky goes for the queen's gambit, so pushes c4. And here Black accepts. Black says, okay, I will take the free pawn on c4 and see what I can do with that. Spassky puts his knight on f3. Avtonomov responds with the mirroring knight to f6. And then we have this e3 move, obviously opens up an attack of the bishop on the undefended pawn. Black decides to forego the pawn and just play c5, and Spassky happily develops his bishop with the tempo, taking the pawn, and now the material has been equalized. And here Black plays e6, probably wants to stop the march of these pawns, but a lot of pawn moves for Black instead of getting pieces out in the game. Spassky tucks his tucks his king away, mixed up the bishop and the king, tucks his king away to safety with the kingside castle, and now Black plays this a6 move. And, the idea behind this move, which we'll see in a moment, is playing b5 and forcing the bishop back, but you are making a lot of pawn moves. Whereas White has a couple of pieces developed and a king that's castled, so you probably want to work on developing your pieces and getting your king to safety first. Here Spassky puts his queen on e2, forms a short-lived battery with the bishop. Not really a battery because it's a battery pointing off to nowhere, so that's kind of a silly comment. And then we have knight to c6 followed by knight to c3. So both knights have come out together, and this knight and this knight were both developed in the same move, and same with these. So a nice bit of symmetry there. Then we have the move we talked about, b5. This obviously comes with an attack on the bishop, so the bishop is forced to retreat. And here's where Black made not the losing move, but the move that really started to let things spiral out of control. It's tempting here to play c4 and attack the bishop again and force it to retreat. But the proper move here is to play bishop to e7, which develops a piece and allows Black to castle on the next move. But instead, Black says, okay, I'm going to take in the center and try to break up the center and take on d4. The problem with this is it allows the immediate rook to d1, and now this rook is on a semi-open file, and it's pinning this pawn to the queen. And this rook lined up with the queen is going to make Black's life very, very difficult. So to deal with this, what Black should have played was knight to a5. It's a weird-looking move, but it challenges the bishop on b3. So, for example, let's say we have knight to a5, and then, give me one moment. First, Black fianchettoed the bishop on b7, and then we have White takes on d4. And now the proper move is to play knight to a5. You threaten this bishop, and now let's say White pushes d5, then you can take the bishop on b3. And now if White kind of goes on the attack with this pawn, so takes on e6, this opens up a discovery on the queen. Then the queen can just move to b6, which is a fine square for the queen. If White continues on and plays f7 check, we get king takes, and then White will take the knight back, and the king can even retreat to g8. And in this position, White is better, but the material is equal, and the king is at least relatively safe here on g8. So this would have been better off for Black had Black gone into this. But instead of playing knight to a5, Black plays knight to b4, and the idea behind this is that you are trying to prevent this d5 move, because now you have two knights guarding the square, you have a bishop, and you have a queen guarding the square, so you're hoping, and a pawn, of course, so you're hoping that the pawn doesn't march into the gates of hell here. But in fact, that's exactly what Spassky does. It's always frustrating when you play a move to try to prevent another move, and then your opponent plays that move anyway, so we have the relentless d5 here. And so Black said, well, I prepared knight to b4, so I'm going to take it back with that same knight. And Spassky now jumps into the attack with bishop to f5. The idea here is it not only develops a piece, but it removes one of the defenders of the knight on d5. So the knight's defended by the bishop, the queen, and the other knight. But now it's really not defended by this knight because the bishop is pinning it to the queen. So nice kind of removal of the defense. Black breaks the pin with bishop to e7, and then Spassky happily just takes the knight off the board. It was a nice defensive piece, and now that knight is gone. And now Black plays the correct move. Black takes back with the pawn on f6. The problem is that this just destroys Black's pawn structure. It makes it so there will never be a safe place for the king to retreat to. But it is the correct move, because if you take with the bishop, then you're going to be down a piece. And what happens here is you would have Spassky taking with the bishop on d5. Black takes with the bishop back, and then Spassky takes with the knight. And now you cannot take this knight because the pawn is pinned to the king, and the correct move here for black is just to get the king to safety and castle. You had to worry about this discovery with the rook on the queen, but this allows Spassky to take the bishop with check, and then after queen takes back, Spassky is just up a knight, and this is clearly just winning for white. So that's why black didn't take with the bishop. You just go into that losing line. Instead, takes back with the pawn. Still losing, but not as bad. Spassky takes anyways. He takes now with the knight on d5. Then we have bishop takes, and now pawn takes. And now black is actually up a pawn and has the bishop for the knight, but black's king is not safe. The bishop is pinned, and these pieces are ready to deliver a really difficult attack for black to deal with. So it starts with knight to d4. Spassky wants to get his knight into the game. And here, black makes another mistake and plays king to f8. It seems like a good idea. You break the pin of the bishop. You still are guarding the bishop with your king and your queen. But the proper move here is actually to play queen to d7 to prevent the knight from coming to f5. But instead, black brings the king to f8, and so Spassky happily moves his queen to f5. And now you really have to be worried about this bishop because it's attacked twice by these two pieces. And it's not entirely clear what you can do here. So now black plays kind of out of desperation. I think the computer says it's a good move. h5, and the idea is you don't want the queen coming to the g file, so you cut that off. But you can just sense the desperation in black's position. All of these pieces, the queen has to defend the bishop. The bishop, doesn't really have a good square to go to. The king can't move away from the defense of the bishop. These rooks aren't in the game. So just kind of a desperation pawn push by black. And now see if you can find the correct move to continue this attack and just make a crushing attack for Spassky here. Okay, so hopefully you found the sacrifice, the rook lift, rook takes on d5. And this is an awesome move because it looks like you're just giving up an entire rook. The clear threat behind this move is rook takes queen on d8. And, if you move to e8 to sort of keep defense of the bishop, then this is just a tough position to play. You have the rook, the other rook could come to d1. The queen could even come to d2 and line up with the rook. The bishop is nothing can move for black. So this would, be a difficult position to play. So instead, black just says, okay, I'll happily take the rook on d5. But now the queen has been lured away from the defense of the bishop, and you just get this queen to e7 check. And now this is just going to be basically impossible to deal with. The king has one move, that is g8. And now, sorry, I keep getting this update messaging. And now this was sort of the move that you had to see for this to work, which is queen takes pawn on f6. And now the threat is obvious, and it's also dire, because you sort of have this queen to g7 checkmate. Let's say black makes a silly move, and this is clearly checkmate. And it looks like you might be able to defend this with the rook, with just a simple rook lift to h7, and then you might be thinking, okay, how do we continue this attack for white? But then you have this wonderful royal fork, knight to e7, checks the king, forks the queen, and this would obviously win the queen and the game. So this is sort of what I think Spassky had to see when he played queen takes on, or back when he sacrificed the rook on d5. He had to see that this rook to h7 defense does not work, because then you have this beautiful fork here. So that doesn't work. So the only proper move to play here is queen takes knight on f5. This obviously just allows the queen to take back. Now you're up a queen for a rook and a pawn, and the opponent's king is not safe. And so that's why I think in this position, after Spassky took the pawn on f6, black resigned the game. I think that's where it ended. So yeah, a really fun game. A case of taking a pawn where you shouldn't, and black definitely regretted not getting his king to safety all game, and a nice sort of tag team combo between the knight and the queen. And just an example of how these bishops, or these rooks, I always mix those up, these rooks, when not developed, are not great defenders. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Drop a like and a subscribe. And yeah, thanks again.